From my understanding of thermodynamics, there's no origin of life scenario, no prebiotic evolution scenario, no chemical evolution scenario that would have ever allowed for the self-organization of matter. The whole scenario is utterly impossible, in my opinion.
Every other code in the world that we know of came from a mind. To conclude that DNA at some level somewhere originally came from a mind is not an irresponsible deduction from the data.
Most of the major animal phyla appear abruptly, geologically speaking, in the Cambrian explosion, with no fossil evidence they actually came from a common ancestor. Theory versus evidence. What does it do to Darwin's theory? Well, I think it weakens Darwin's theory. The evidence weakens Darwin's theory. But for science, that's good. If the theory doesn't explain the evidence, then it should be weakened.
Historically, all the founding fathers of science were non-evolutionists, and many of them were anti-evolutionists. So I realized that good science is not in any way conditional upon accepting the evolutionary theory.
I know people are saying, well, you can't bring religious prejudice to the table. Well, if I'm not mistaken, Newton, who's one of the greatest scientists of all time, started with the premise of God designed the universe, so it was his job to figure out a little bit about what God did.
You know what evolution predicts? That the Y chromosome is going to disappear because it doesn't repair itself like it should. I'd call that de-evolution. We're going to lose the Y chromosome, guess what happens? School's out.
In the past 50 years, science has discovered, much to their surprise and which was completely unknown in the time of Darwin, that the cell, the basis of life, is composed of machines. This is the bacterial flagellum. It is quite literally an outboard motor that bacteria use to swim.
Therefore, just like text in a book, the code in DNA has the fingerprints of intelligence.
How did we get all of these body plans very suddenly? And what is the policy of the National Science Teachers Association? Do not adopt any policies that will suggest to students that life arises suddenly rather than gradually.
If you want to have a bunch of robots as your students, then you feed them just only the data that you want them to have. But if you want them to be critical thinkers, you give them all the data and let them decide.
Chinese professor said, in China you can't criticize the government, but you can criticize Darwin. In the US, you can criticize the government, but you cannot criticize Darwin.